Look at your phone right now. There's a good chance it's past the time you told yourself you'd be in bed. Maybe you've tried sleep tracking apps, melatonin, blackout curtains, white noise machines. The entire modern wellness industry exists because humans have forgotten how to sleep. But here's what nobody in that industry will tell you. The sleep you're trying to fix wasn't the original design. For 300,000 years, your ancestors slept in a way so different from what you do tonight that sleep scientists studying it for the first time genuinely didn't believe the data. And when they finally accepted it, it changed everything they thought they knew about the human brain. Let's start with what sleep actually looked like before walls, before clocks, before the concept of a bedtime existed. The popular assumption is straightforward. Humans were exhausted from hunting and building and surviving, so they collapsed at sunset and woke at dawn. 8 hours, uninterrupted, driven by pure physical necessity. It sounds logical. It's almost entirely wrong. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Ware at the National Institute of Mental Health removed artificial light from a group of volunteers for an entire month. No lamps, no screens, no fire after dark. Just humans in darkness the way your ancestors experienced it every single night. Within 3 weeks, every single participant had abandoned the 8-hour sleep model entirely. Without a single instruction, without any coordination between subjects, they all independently converged on the exact same pattern. 4 hours of sleep. Then a quiet, wakeful period of 1 to 2 hours. Then 4 more hours until dawn. Not one outlier. Every participant. The same pattern. Ware didn't invent this. He rediscovered it. Historical records across medieval Europe, pre-colonial Africa, indigenous communities across the Americas all reference this pattern so routinely that historians had stopped noticing it. They called it first sleep and second sleep, terms so common in historical texts that researchers assumed they referred to napping. They didn't. They were describing the default operating system of the human brain, running exactly as it was built, undisturbed, for hundreds of thousands of years. But here is what makes this genuinely extraordinary. That wakeful window between the two sleep phases wasn't restless or anxious. Brain studies of modern subjects who returned to the pattern showed that the period between first and second sleep produced activity levels almost identical to a meditative state. Prolactin, the hormone most associated with deep calm and the feeling immediately after an experience of transcendence, surged during that window at levels not seen at any other point in the 24-hour cycle. Your ancestors weren't lying awake worrying. They were experiencing something closer to a naturally induced altered state every single night, built directly into their biology. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner documented what actually happened during that window among the Ju hoansi Bushmen of the Kalahari, one of the few remaining communities still living close to the ancestral sleep pattern. The wakeful period wasn't silent, it was social. People talked, not about logistics or hunting or resources. That was daytime conversation. At night, around fire, the content shifted entirely. 81% of nighttime conversation across Wiesner's data was stories, myths, histories, moral dilemmas, accounts of ancestors doing impossible things. The campfire in the dark wasn't just warmth, it was the original transmission system for everything a community needed to survive across generations. Now here's where it gets complicated, because sleeping in 2 phases inside a mammoth bone shelter on the frozen steppe wasn't simply a biological preference. It was an engineered survival response to one of the most dangerous threats ancient humans faced, and it had almost nothing to do with predators. It had to do with fire. In sub-zero temperatures, a fire inside an enclosed shelter isn't optional. It's the difference between waking up and not waking up. And fire, managed by sleeping humans, behaves in a very predictable way. It burns down. Archaeological analysis of hearth remains at sites like Kostenki in Russia shows a consistent pattern in the ash and charcoal layers. A large burn, then a reduced burn, then a second large burn. Every single site. The same signature. 2 distinct fire management events separated by a gap. That gap lines up precisely with the wakeful window between first and second sleep. Your ancestors weren't waking up at midnight by accident. They were waking up to tend the fire, and their biology had synchronized itself to that requirement so completely that the wakeful period became hardwired into the sleep cycle itself. Survival and biology merged into one system. But fire management was only part of what happened during that window. The other part has left almost no physical trace, which is exactly why it took so long for researchers to understand its importance. Cognitive consolidation. The science of what the sleeping brain actually does has only recently become clear enough to reframe what those 2 separate sleep phases were actually for. The first sleep phase is now understood to be dominated by slow-wave deep sleep, the phase where physical restoration happens, tissue repairs, immune systems reset, the body does its maintenance work. The second sleep phase shifts toward REM, the phase where the brain processes, connects, and stores the experiences of the previous day. 2 separate biological jobs, separated by a natural break, each optimized for a different function. The 2-phase pattern wasn't just culturally convenient, it was neurologically precise. Here's what that means. The wakeful window your ancestors experienced every night wasn't interrupting their sleep. It was the hinge between 2 completely different brain states, each one necessary, neither one sufficient alone. Modern humans collapsed those 2 phases into one continuous block and called it progress. What they actually did was compress 2 distinct biological processes into a single event and wonder why neither one works as well as it should. The location of sleep mattered as much as the structure of it. Inside mammoth bone houses, the sleeping arrangement wasn't random. Archaeological evidence from Mazyrik in Ukraine shows sleeping areas organized by thermal priority. Infants and elderly nearest to the central hearth, able-bodied adults positioned toward the perimeter where temperatures dropped faster, and where the first alert to any structural problem or fire change would be felt first. The people most capable of responding to a crisis slept where they would notice one earliest. Even unconscious, ancient humans were running a survival system. And then there is the question of what ancient humans were not doing during sleep that modern humans are. They were not lying still for 8 uninterrupted hours in a temperature-controlled room in complete darkness and silence. Studies of the Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last hunter-gatherer communities on Earth, published in 2017, found something that overturned decades of sleep research assumptions. The Hadza average just 6 hours and 25 minutes of sleep per night. They frequently sleep outdoors. Temperature drops significantly through the night. Noise is constant. And yet metabolic markers, immune function, and cognitive performance in Hadza individuals show none of the deterioration markers associated with sleep deprivation in Western subjects sleeping the same duration. The conclusion the researchers reached was direct. The human body did not evolve to sleep in silence, warmth, and stillness. It evolved to sleep in variable temperature, ambient noise, and interrupted cycles. The conditions modern sleep science considers ideal may be the conditions the human brain is least prepared to handle. We built the perfect sleep environment and broke something in the process. Go back to your phone. The sleep app telling you that you woke up 3 times last night and your sleep quality was poor. The melatonin on your nightstand. The blackout curtains. Every one of those things exists to solve a problem that was created, not inherited. Your ancestors didn't have a sleep problem. They had a sleep system, precise, social, biologically synchronized to fire and season, and the specific cognitive work that needed to happen between dusk and dawn. They woke in the middle of the night deliberately, spent an hour in a calm that modern humans almost never naturally access, told each other the stories that kept their world coherent, tended the fire that kept them alive, and then slept again until the light came back. You didn't lose the ability to sleep well. You inherited a system built for a world that no longer exists, and then blamed the system. The biology is still there, running exactly as it was designed, waiting for conditions it recognizes. The question isn't how to fix your sleep, it's whether you're willing to understand what it was actually built to do.